say who I am because Naomi's already introduced me, but it's great to see so many people here. And just look round. Is there anybody here you don't know? Yeah? Everybody got someone they don't know? Yeah? That's really, really good. That's what we want, because we want to be able to develop the network and build relationships with other people, and that's part of what Feeding Liverpool is about. Thank you, Naomi. I should have done that. I can't click and talk.
I don't know where I'm going.
It'd go backwards too.
There we go.
That's right. So firstly, Feeding Liverpool is an ecumenical, well, it was an ecumenical partnership for a very long time, and it's developing. And these are our aims from Feeding Liverpool. And I'm not going to read them all out, but I think today we're creating an arena for practitioners, for volunteers, for people to share and shape good practice in relation to food. And I've got a quote about food. About a long time ago, 1994, I reviewed a book, and the cover page of the book has always stayed with me. What it said was, food is the foundation stone of global survival, and its provision structures societies. Profound social, moral, economic, and nutritional issues are involved in every level of food policy and the provision of food. I think that's a very apt quotation, and I think stood the test of time. It's as good now as it did in 1994, and that's what we're doing today. So I've given you an opportunity to have a look at what we've got on the slide there. And then this is what we're doing today. Feeding Liverpool is also leading Liverpool's Good Food Plan, and we want to make sure that refugees, asylum seekers, people who migrate to Liverpool for whatever reason, Liverpool's a great city of sanctuary, and we have a welcome for everyone. And we want the Good Food Plan to be relevant, acceptable, and effective for everybody. And if we go on to the next slide, these are the goals of the Good Food Plan. Have you seen this before? Yeah, if you haven't, then it's new, but I think what we're going to be doing today is linking on to all of those goals. I can't see any way that what we're going to talk about isn't going to fit in with the Good Food Plan. And if you haven't seen the Good Food Plan, if you look on Feeding Liverpool's website, all the information is on there. That's it. Okay, I don't want any questions now. What I was thinking we could do is when we get to the session after lunch, I want to encourage you to sit on tables with people you don't know, and we'll have a little bit of time for you to formulate some questions. And then there will be a panel, which will be myself, Nicher, and Ewan. But actually, you've got loads of information, so as questions come, we'll be sharing our knowledge and understanding, and hopefully learning about being better and more effective together. So I'm now going to introduce the manager. I asked Ewan how he wanted to be introduced, and he said, just him. I said, what's your role? He said, I'm the manager. Here's the manager.
Yes, if I could just get to where we're going. Not managing very well. F5 usually kicks it off.
Technology never changes, does it? It's been perfect.
At this point I could give you a tune, but that might lose a few.
It's worth the wait.
Groovy. Excellent.
Grand morning. Yeah, they call me the manager because I only just manage. It's Asylum Link second at Oddity. It's good to be here because Asylum's in the news and Ukraine's in the news, and then a few months ago Afghanistan was in the news, and then a few months before that Syria was in the news, before that Yemen was in the news, and Sudan was in the news, and you start to begin to realise that refugees are always in the news, but it's what we actually do about that kind of makes us the country that we are, or the country that we should be. And you can see from there that the number of people at risk around the globe just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it almost grows alongside the population. So our population is set to go from 7 billion to 11 billion by the end of the century. And that's a kind of a figure that starts to focus people's minds. And so from my point of view, there will be more conflict over land, over resources and things like that. So what it means is we should have a proper, well thought out refugee policy. And what we're seeing unfold at the moment is just something that's made up on the hoof. It's dreadful. Now, we can go on to talk a wee bit about the immigration bill later. Now, in terms of what's happening within the asylum system at the moment, it's backed up and it's stuck. In December, there were over 100,000 people waiting for a first decision, an initial decision that comes from the Home Office. And you can see from that graph that that's built up over years and years. Asylum claims haven't really been that big through the last decade, or even, since the beginning of the 2000s. We're seeing an increase now, and that's partially due to Brexit, not having a policy that fits where we are now. But the backlog is built up over a much longer time, and it's not just a backlog on decision making, it's also a backlog on people getting ARC cards, their asylum registration cards. And without the asylum registration card or things like that, you're not getting access to the benefits. The whole system is crumbling. So about 3 or 4 months ago, food banks were seeing a lot of asylum seekers sent to the food bank. Now, they shouldn't have been sent to the food bank. They should have been talking to Serco, the managing agent, and getting emergency payments from them. But it's easier to send somebody to the food bank, isn't it? And we kind of have to watch out for things like that. So basically what's happening in the asylum system is it's knackered. You've got, every time somebody comes across the channel in small boats now, and they're coming on small boats because they know there's no agreement to return them anywhere. So we did see numbers get much bigger at the end of the year. So when people arrive, there's nowhere for them to go. So they open a hotel somewhere. So in Liverpool now, we've got 4 big hotels in use. We've got a big hotel in use in Kirby. You've got the Daresbury out in Runcorn. It's shocking. And the Home Office have been recruiting into their asylum division hand over fist. We don't understand why this is happening. It actually feels deliberate. But the Home Office are never going to say that. So just for those of you who are not familiar with the asylum system, generally people don't get permission to work. They can apply for permission to work if they've been here 12 months and haven't had a decision. And that's actually happening more and more. There's legislation in the Commons at the moment where it's a campaign called Lift the Ban, where we're trying to get asylum seekers permission to work at 6 months, which is actually what happens in most of Europe. Some people are allowed to work earlier if they've not had a decision. You're now waiting 12 to 18 months to get on a college course for ESOL, and that's just because of the demand. And following on from that, if people haven't got access to the language, then they're isolated. They can't communicate properly. They don't understand the culture here. One of the things that you'd say is, we cannot know, the royal we, that you go to a GP and register with them when you move into a new area, even though there's nothing wrong with you. But that's a kind of weird concept for a lot of people arriving here from abroad. Why do I have to go to the doctor? I'm not ill. And then, of course, when you do need the doctor, there's a problem. So there's lots of things that isolate asylum seekers. £39 a week to live on. That's with the magnificent £2 a week COVID uplift. So it was 37. And I talked to an Iranian pastor the other week who came through Asylum Link in 2008. And he said, it was bad in 2008. We only had £35 a week to live on. So that's what, 14 years ago? And it's gone up £4. It's shocking, it's shameful to see how we've treated people. And it continues, it keeps going on. We could talk about the hostile environment forever. When did it be okay to make a hostile environment for other human beings? You can only do that if you don't see them as human beings. And waiting. Now people are waiting 12, 18 months for their first interview. And that's before you even get to the decision-making stage. So we're kind of at a crisis point, which is why you see the government proposing these extreme measures to try and get the system moving. The system won't get moving unless they put money into it or tell people to start making decisions. So it's a very difficult time. So the whole system for asylum seekers is really bad for their mental health, which means when they come across other organisations like ours or like yours, there's got to be a warm welcome. There has to be an inclusion, bringing people in, making them feel better. Because what happens when you fall out of the system? Most people think that asylum seekers are removed, they're put in a plane and sent somewhere. Most asylum seekers are just made homeless. They're given 21 days to get out of their accommodation and sign for a voluntary return programme. And most people don't do it because they're frightened to go back. So what you get then is a kind of unknown number of people that are homeless. In 2017, the Migration Observatory estimated that there was between 800,000 and 1.2 million undocumented migrants in the UK, which is a staggering number of people who are going to be coming to the food banks or anywhere they can get food. I hate to think what some people do to survive. But that's what we've done. We've created a system that drives people down into a dead end. So if you have to turn to crime to survive, well, you will, because you don't have any other choice. So the people that we see, the ones that come in across charities, they are kind of the lucky ones. So it's a really dreadful system. So this is, I only put this in because I'm trying to look clever. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we kind of know about it. It's survival on the bottom, it's friendship further up, and then it's self-actualization. I never really saw myself as being self-actualized, but I suppose we get it. But the point about this is people jump between these different levels, so it's not just food, it's not just survival. Survival isn't life, and we're about giving people a chance to access their life, which it sounds like a ridiculous thing to say. So when we are giving out food, we have to think about how we do it, which starts to bring us back to the welcome part. And what can we use food for? Because it's not just survival, it can't be that. And I like that thing, you get further with a kind word and a chocolate biscuit with just a kind word. So. That was Al Capone. He wasn't using chocolate biscuits either. So that's the map of Asylum Link, and it's kind of split into two. You've got the nice side, which is the social side, which we haven't really had much of for 2 years. But that's all the kind of drop-in, the kitchen, teas and coffees, the English classes, allotments. We used to have a table tennis team that got disbanded in COVID. Lots of new projects that we've got around tree planting and beach cleaning, things to try and engage people or at least to distract them. Because you can't solve all the problems, so you put in these kind of temporary measures. But food features largely in that. The kitchen, when it's going, is just phenomenal. Wilson, who's here, his wife works in the kitchen. And Ruth produces just the most incredible dal and roti and stuff. You can smell it coming through the door and you think, oh, thank God, it's going to be a good day. But everybody can choose. There's all sorts of different types of food from Africa, all around the world. It's a lovely way of doing it. So I thought what I'd do is kind of look at Asylum Link and look at that diagram and then figure out, take away all the bits that didn't have food in them, and kind of got left with this kind of slightly unbalanced thing. You can see most of the food's on the nice side. It's only the kind of destitution stuff that was on the casework and the gritty side. So just looking at that, at the different ways we use it, so it is survival for a lot of people. I have never been able to get out of the Home Office how many people they make homeless each year. They won't tell you. It's too difficult. It costs more than £600 for them to find out. Do you believe that? I don't. It's just it's an unfortunate statistic for them, because it would allow us in the voluntary sector to get all angry and say this is unfair, but it would also go to the public and they'd say, how many people are you just letting out onto the street every year? I mean, this whole notion of we must be tough, we must push back on the channel, we must do this and send everybody to Rwanda. But when you turn up at the Home Office here to claim asylum because you flew in and you just got, they send people to us. And then what we have to do is put people on the overnight bus to Croydon so they can get to Croydon and claim asylum there. that's not really what you would call a robust entry into the asylum process, is it? And similarly at the end, when they just release people into homelessness. So on the one hand, the government are telling us we must be tough, we must be fair, we must be pushing back and all the rest of it. But actually the reality is like 180 degrees away from that. We don't know who's in our community. And so it's difficult to try and estimate how many destitute people we're actually dealing with at any one time. We would normally work on a figure of about 200 people out of 800, 900 for casework. That number's got much less during COVID because they had the everyone in policy. And largely, a lot of asylum seekers that did come out of the woodwork got housed. Now, we're waiting for the evictions to really ramp up and start again now that COVID is finished. And they haven't really started yet. We had 57 eviction letters issued in the run-up to Christmas, and we successfully challenged 56 of them. So there's you can work at it, but at some point more destitute people will be coming out and coming into our communities. So our food store, we've got a food store, it's more like a wee shop. You go in and choose things what you want. It's quite bijou. We can handle up to 60 people a week. We can push to 80 sometimes. At the moment there's only about 25 people coming in. Sometimes we deal with families, which I find a bit difficult because actually that's the local authority should be doing that, and so we try not to have too many families coming in. There's a range of basic goods that we buy using money from SAS and our own funds, and then we do the fair share Costco, Tesco thing that a lot of you will be familiar with. A lot of the fresh food that we get then gets diverted and goes into the kitchen, so we try not to waste anything. So we're either giving it out to the destitute group or it's going into the kitchen to be used to feed the general population. And we've got our allotments, which is, there's 3 plots, but it's not enough to feed everybody, but it's a nice thing. It's another element of the food thing that we'll look at. When we're fully open, we would be producing 200 plates of food a day, 5 days a week. And that's, if you are destitute, then you can just come in and get fed, you can get a breakfast and a bit of lunch.
Where are you?
We're at Top Edge Hill, opposite what used to be the Taskers. We're in the presbytery next to St Anne's Church. And as I speak, here's our parish priest, Father Peter, who was integral to getting Asylum Link set up where it is. So the kitchen, you see lots of smiley faces, don't you? Why would you be sad in the kitchen? I mean, some people complain about the spice sometimes, but even if you don't like it, it's something to talk about. So it's a great way of engaging people and bringing people in. There was a rumour that any Iranians that worked in the kitchen got leave to remain, and it was a rumour. It was completely unfounded. We had loads of people wanting to get into the kitchen to volunteer. They thought there was something magic about it. But it's lovely. It's vibrant. It's really kind of go ahead and to be able, I think, for somebody to be able to produce something from their homeland, from their heart, that's important to them, and give it to somebody else, and somebody else appreciates it. That's just wonderful. You see people sort of reflating in the kitchen. And it's a great sort of flag for us to wave. And you can socialise there. If you come into the kitchen and you just want to eat, nobody's going to bother you. You can just be there. It takes a lot for us to actually go and tap somebody and go, are you all right? Because most people are not all right. But if they just want to sit quiet, then that's fine. There's no you don't have to do anything. And the food is plentiful. It worries me sometimes. Ruth's doling me out my lunch, and I'm saying, Ruth, look at the size of me. You don't have to put that much on the plate. One of the things we'd like to work at is getting a little bit better about the food content, thinking about type 2 diabetes and stuff like that. So you can start to do things like that once you've got a kind of educated kitchen population and you go beyond the food hygiene stuff. So it's good, and it saves people money. They can eat for free. Food connections is quite important. The allotments, again, it's a kind of flag for us to wave. It doesn't feed everybody, but it gets people out and about, exercise, meeting other people, making new friends, practicing their language. All those things that come from an allotment plot or growing food somewhere, it doesn't have to be an allotment. And we want to make other connections with other people around the city so that you get more cross-fertilisation, if that's not too contrived a pun. But it's great, and this sort of flows into things like tree planting, working with Mersey Forest and going to North Wales. And so we're actually with not the food projects, but other things. We're now working in three other cities doing action asylum, getting asylum seekers to volunteer in non-asylum settings. And by the end of year 3 of a lottery project, we'll be working in 10 cities, telling people what we've been doing here. So it's a really good thing. But that human connection, because until you meet an asylum seeker, they might just stay this weird shadowy figure that you see in the news. But once you've met somebody, it's just a person, it's somebody's son or daughter, it's a footballer or a musician or a teacher. We have to actually humanise asylum seekers. You know, you find yourself saying things that you never thought you'd have to say. But that's the reality. And we have to fight back against all this sort of vitriol that you get online and the stupid things that politicians say sometimes. So we want nice flags to be able to wave at people. So when we go and clean the beach at Crosby, we are saying to people, look what refugees are doing in your community. And then from there you go to our community. We want communities that understand and value each of the component parts. The other thing, we do food demonstrations, not very often, but that's another thing to go out and it's a bridge towards people. So doing dal and roti, and we usually give people a little dal bag to go away with a recipe card in it and lentils and stuff. And it's great, it just gets things across to people. So it's not just the food, it's what you do with the food. It's a vehicle for all sorts of different things. You guys know that. So, briefly, before I shut up, I want to look at the new immigration bill, which is an utter disaster. I've never seen anything like it. So what will happen now is if somebody from Ukraine turns up at the door and they've come by boat, there's the potential for them to be sent to Rwanda. Yet if you come through the visa scheme, did we ever think we'd have a refugee visa? No idea what's going on here. You'll come in, you can work for 3 years and you'll get access to all the benefits you need. I can understand that the crossing the channel is a stupid thing. I worked at the sea for nearly 20 years. The water is a dangerous, nasty place. And it'll kill people. It'll probably kill more people than we know about. But this is not the way to stop people crossing the channel. We need to have an agreement with France and actually all the European partners. France takes twice as many refugees as we do. You know, we have to work these things out together. And what we do have to do is meaningfully integrate people into our communities when they come, not push them away. If the government gets its way, we'll go to relocation programs only, which will mean far reduced numbers. So normally we've been seeing asylum claims of 25,000, 27,000 a year, something like that, for a long time. In the last 2 years it's jumped, and I see that primarily because of Brexit, because we've withdrawn from all the mechanisms for returning people, and that's widely known now. We're now going to see increased use of detention centres and offshoring. In the Australian model, 1 in 4 people attempt suicide or self-harms. Even if you went past the humanitarian angle of that, the cost to your health services are huge. And never mind if we're going to fly all these people to Rwanda. It's just, immigration is something that makes everybody park their logic. Britain's obsessed with it. And we've kind of got to change that attitude. The worst thing about the bill is there's no end to asylum destitution, to institutionalised homelessness. But for us, as a city, if this bill comes to fruition, there is if it goes one way, we could see far fewer people here. And I don't think that's good given the scale of world conflict. But who knows? We really don't know what's happening here because they're not saying. So my hope is that the bill gets talked out in the Lords and doesn't actually come to pass. But if all this thing about food and what we do and how we do it, this is what we are aiming for. It's happiness. We're in the business of producing happiness, not necessarily feeding people, although that's part of it. But that was somebody who's come here, had a horrible traumatic journey, dreadful circumstances, but finally got her house in the Welsh streets. And one of our teachers took her up to show her where she was living, she's going to be living. And she just got out of the car, did that, and Bridie took a photograph. And it's transformational. We can do that for people, but we can't do it on our own. It's not just Asylum Link's job. Asylum Link cannot do this on its own. We've all got to have our part to play in this, so that we are building something that's far bigger and far better than we have now. A community that understands and values all its component parts. Really, thanks. Does anybody want to ask questions? Was that too quick? Oh, I didn't get that right then, did I?
Are there questions for you, and immediate ones? We are going to have a panel after lunch, so there'll be time to ask further questions then, which I hope you'll develop on your tables, and then we can share that together. Any immediate questions? Nicher.
I have a question. You have people who... Hiya. We have people who come to the food bank and they always ask me to call the Asylum Link for appointment to get clothes.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking why they need to make appointment, because most of people don't speak English, so we need to translate to them.
Yeah.
And if there is any other way we can help people, because it's quite difficult for them to call, to make appointment. Some people don't understand what they need to do.
Yeah. It's hard. At the moment we're still operating on a limited access basis. So until we open the doors and open the drop-in fully, people won't just be able to turn up. They've got to make an appointment. And the clothes store is booked up 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
We've tried doing deliveries. We've tried to do access to get people access to it in as many different ways as we can. But it's very frustrating, I understand, because we're short of people to answer the telephones. There's no one receptionist at the moment. So it is a frustrating process, but that's because there are huge numbers of people trying to access something that's quite limited. The clothes store was only open 3 days a week. It's now open 4 days a week, and we'll eventually get back to 5 days a week. But that's getting the volunteers back in after COVID. And we're still masked up in the centre, we still do temperature checks, we still do sanitising, and we still restrict the numbers in the rooms. So to get into the clothes store, it's not an open door policy yet. Hopefully in May, we will be able to do that, but I'm looking at the latest report from the council. COVID cases have gone up by 140%. So we're not out of this thing yet. So that's why there's a restriction on access to the clothes store. But normally, we'll try and do it as many different ways as we can. There's the website's translated if people can get onto that. You can get free Wi-Fi at the front door. So you could, in theory, stand at the front door, log in, look at translated materials on the website and find out what to do. Or it's whether we can get hold of a translator through the caseworkers when other people phone in. We normally only use translators for sort of booked-in work. So it's difficult. It's not there's not a perfect system, and certainly the way ALM has grown up, it's far from perfect. But it's there, and people just have to kind of be patient. Sorry.
Just thinking in terms of community food spaces, as someone that runs one in Wavertree, how might we be able to serve you better? It's great having a place where we can go, but if you want to have that sense of our community, we actually want them to be integrated into all the food spaces around the city, not one designated to one different category. So it's a way that we can kind of serve and integrate better with what we're doing.
Well, it's finding out. There's no one space where everybody sort of sticks all their stuff in and says, oh, I'll go and talk to these people over here. So it's just emailing. There's an info address. If you sort of ever come across people at Asylum Link, all the staff, it's just their first name and then at asylumlink.org.uk, and it'll come through info. The info address is 2 or 3 times a day, and the emails get forwarded onto the relevant people. So we've got somebody called Emma that's doing Action Asylum projects, which are specifically working with other people with non-asylum organisations. So we'd look to place asylum seekers with you, volunteering with you, and then there could be a little bit of bounce back the other way. So you start doing things together. It's just finding out about people and who's out there. One of the things that we suffer from is running very hard on the treadmill. So it's actually difficult to lift your head up and go, who's out there? Because you're doing the day job. So that's the kind of trade-off. But yes, it's just to get in contact. And we've got somebody now who's doing these other specific projects out and about. But there's a lot of knowledge in ALM, both through the staff and through the volunteers. There's about 10 staff. We just lost somebody, but we're hoping to recruit as the funding comes through. And there's well over 100 volunteers. There was 130 before the pandemic. So generally we will find somebody to talk to other organisations or other individuals. But again, it's volume. It takes a lot to do all this stuff.
Okay. Is that okay? Yeah. So we hold other questions until later on. Ewan, thank you so much. It's breathtaking how much we need to know and to understand. And I loved your last slide saying actually we need to do this together. And Liverpool is a city of sanctuary, and it's beholden on everybody, because asylum seekers and refugees are people seeking asylum and refugees. They're not a type of, not a separate alien species. So we need to think that. And we want to hear from people who've been through the system themselves, and Nicher, who has got a beautiful smile, lights up the room. Nisha's going to come and talk to us about her experience. She's now the community development worker in Micah, and but has been through the process herself, and she's going to come and tell you about her experience. Nicher.
Okay, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's 15 minutes. That's it. Hello, everybody. My name is Nicher. I'm a Micah Liverpool cornet, as she said. I'm going to try to speak in just 15 minutes about my journey as asylum seeker and refugees. It's not easy to talk about it. It's really hard, emotional journey. Sometimes you think like all your problems are going to go away when you get to UK, but okay, I just started getting emotional. But it's not easy. It's really hard journey, especially when you have kids with you. You move from struggle to new struggle. You're never used to it. You're gonna go through staying in hostel with people you never know, people from different background, and there's a lot going there. You're struggling with food. You're struggling to get your child anything. It's quite journey, to be honest, and it's not like short journey. It's very long journey. It's your home office. You got no family. You don't speak language. It's horrible. Anyway, I came to UK in 2017 with my daughter. She was 4 years, and we gone through all the process. Mr. was talking about it. The refugees, the asylum seeker. When you come to UK first, you start as asylum seeker. Wherever you are, they take you to hostel. And in hostel is where you wait for maybe 2 to 3 weeks until you move to house or you move to sharing house. Depend if you're family or you're single. It's just depend of the person. And sometimes you get moved to different city, not the same where you are. Sometimes they bring you from different city to another city, because for home office it's just where they found place, empty place to take people. So you never know where you're gonna go or where you're going to stay. You just like back, get carried, taken anywhere. You don't have any choice. You can't say, oh no, I don't want to go here, I don't have family here. You don't have choice. You have to go where they ask you to go. And so when I came, I was in London, and I know people in London, but I get moved to Liverpool, was my first place to stay, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't understand the accent at all. And then most of the time, for appointment, they may call you on the phone, and you feel like you know a little bit English, but with accent, it was just really difficult. Anyway, the first time when you come to the hostel, normally sometimes people come in evening, and you have to wait all day until 2 o'clock to get your £5. In our time, when I come 2017, was £5 a day for a person. So if you come like in evening, you're gonna stay without no food or anything all night until morning time, until 2 o'clock, when the people from home office come to give people £5 is at 2 o'clock. So you're gonna take that £5, and the nearer place for you, sometime maybe Tesco, and then you go to the shop, you look around, you have £5 in your hand, and you need to buy your breakfast, you need to buy your lunch, and you need to buy your dinner. It's a £5. You go to Tesco, you look around, and most of food you don't even know what is those things. Okay, if I buy vegetable to cook at home, the money you have is not going to be enough to buy those things. At the same time, most people, you are hungry. If you go to restaurant to eat with this £5, you can't go to restaurant to buy £5. That means you're going to eat one meal and you have nothing else to eat until next day. So it's quite difficult. There, where's the food bank come? And the food bank is really, really helping people. Without food bank, I think people, I don't know what's going to happen to them. I'm not going to say they're going to die, but they're going to really struggle. Really, really big struggle. So from beginning, I started volunteering food bank because I can see and I can understand what food bank mean to most of people, especially people with the kids. Because most of people, when they come to UK, not everybody was really struggling in his own country. Some people come with really good background, but when the war or problem is start in your country, you have no choice. You have to seek a safe place for your kids. You don't want to fight. You don't want all this what's going on. People have a lot of different problems, make them leave their own country, political or war or a lot of reason, or I don't know how they call it. Some people are just because they're gay, they may get killed. So you have to leave your country, you have to leave your family back seeking just to save your life. It's not because of economic background, it's not because of education. Some people educate very well. Me, myself, I finished my university, but when I came here, my certificate was nothing. And I have to be normal like anybody else. And you get like, oh, this is not happening to me. But the reality, your life can change at any time. And not anybody can understand that you are not just, you have life before, but when you came here, you have to start from zero. You don't speak language, you don't know anywhere, you don't know anybody. So I started volunteer with Micah Food Bank, and I help with translate with the people, and I have to give away because I appreciate and I know Food Bank can help a lot, can save your life, can help your kids, and it's really, really great to support because most people don't know other organizations. And then the other thing, when you're in hostel, you don't have access to doctors. You're not allowed to go to the doctor. I never understand why. Do you have to wait until you move to house because you need to have post code to register to the doctor? That's things people don't understand. Why I need post code? I just need to be sick to see a doctor. But no, you have to have address to register to the GP. That's other thing people struggle with it. You have to move. And then the other things, when you move out of the hostel, you move to the house or the share house, there is no any big difference, by the way. It's the same £5 you get a day. Just the difference, you're gonna get the same money weekly. By the end of the week, there is no any change. Sometimes we think like, oh, now they move out of the hostel, they go to house. No, there is no any change. you still receiving the same £5 until the Home Office give you to stay and remain. How do you say? To stay and remain.
Leave to remain.
To remain, yeah. And then you will have access to benefits, university credit, or all the benefits. But when you still asylum seeker, you don't have any access. And sometimes when they move you to different city, you don't know the organization. You don't know where to go. You don't even where food bank. We have sometimes people move to other side of world. They keep coming back to us because they don't know where to go. They don't know anything. They don't know the language. It's a new struggle. Until you don't know how long you're gonna stay until the Home Office accepts your document to be refugees. Because from asylum seeker, you're gonna become to refugees for 5 years, and then after that, you can become a citizen. So it's a long journey, and it's a lonely journey. So the only thing supporting people during this journey is the organization, Asylum Link. I've been to Asylum Link when I was asylum seeker. They helped me with my document. You have to apply to the Home Office to get out the hostel, and sometimes you just don't know what to do. So Asylum Seeker is one of the organizations really helping people with to get access to the Home Office, to get support. You need to get support from Home Office to move out of the hostel. And other thing, when you live in hostel, it's just a lot of things going on. As I said before, there's people from different background. There is sexual harassment going on there. And for a lot of women, it's not easy to talk about it, because what people understand, you need to stay and be quiet until you move out. And just put in that place, you're sharing kitchen, you're sharing bathroom, you're sharing shower. And it's quite difficult because you get sexual harassment there, even it's not safe for your kids, but you have no choice until you move out of the hostel. And sometimes it really takes a long time. Supposed to stay, normally people supposed to stay for 4 weeks, but sometimes it's 2 months, 3 months. Sometimes you not get accepted from Home Office to move out of the hostel. You may say that they may refuse you and ask you to leave. And then you become homeless, you have nowhere to go. As Mr. covered before, you have nowhere to go and you have access to you don't have access to anything. So that's something else. And when you have kids, it's another struggling, because it's quite difficult for kids seeing people from different background, and sometimes they don't understand the situation why they're there. So it's just, I'm trying not to take a long time. So what anyway, this is my experience as asylum seeker and refugees in the UK, and from person to person, it's really quite different. This is my own experience. I just choose to share with the people. I know other people have different experience. With other people may become the experience more difficult than mine, because at Micah Food Bank we have people who are volunteer with us, and they've been here in the UK for more than 3 years, but they're still asylum seekers. My situation now, I'm refugees, so I'm leave to remain in the UK. Other people stay more than that. There's people who stay 10 years and they still don't have any access to anything else, only the food bank or those organizations. They can't even go to college. They have to keep studying in Asylum Link English, or they can't even access, they can't work, they can't get any job, because you still don't have any paper or document to get a job. You just have to stay and you have nothing to do. So this is what I want to share, and then I'm going to share a little bit about my work with Micah at the food bank, at the Micah Food Bank. We support most of people refugees, asylum seekers, people from different backgrounds. Sometime a week we see 300 people, sometimes 400, 450, and people come from different backgrounds, and the only support they get is from food bank. So it's really great what the food bank doing, what most of those organizations doing to support people, because they really don't have anywhere else to go. So I really appreciate all the stuff Micah do or other organizations do to help and support all the refugees and asylum seekers. This is my time. Anyway, thank you. Does anybody have questions?
We've got time for a couple of questions and then we'll break into lunch. Has anyone got any questions for Nicher?
What's available for young children when, sorry, what's available for young children when they're in this country as the children of asylum seekers? Do they have access to anything other than the hostel and the basic provision you've described?
No.
Nothing?
No.
And they could be in that situation from now for up to 10 years, so there's children
They can't go
from
to school.
They can go to school?
Yeah, they can't go to school.
Yeah.
Even if you're in hostel, your kids can still go to school. And if they're sick, they can go to walk-in center.
Okay.
Yeah, because you still don't have access to the GP.
But nothing more than that?
Yeah. It's only people count on the organization. Sometimes they make activities for kids, but there is no really official for asylum seeker kids.
I also think that the government reduced the money that was available for children about 3 or 4 years ago. You used to get something that was equivalent to child allowance, but they got rid of it. And the reason they gave was it's administratively difficult to administer. So we're just making it all the same. So as I understand it, and I'm looking at Phil now, the payments for asylum seeker children are the same as those for adults.
Yeah, the same, yeah.
Especially the children of the going to the uni age. So they have a problem to get the admission in the uni. So they have to struggle as they are considered as international students. So this is again problem. They have to struggle from pillar to post.
And other thing is also the children, when they're in hostel, they really go through a lot of stuff. There is sexual harassment going there. You don't know what is other people. It's really, and there is no any other plan for kids to protect them. It's just like if you're in a hostel, you're going to kitchen, you take your child with you, you lock your door. It's like you're in jail, to be honest. But there is no any other plan for them.
Yeah, I think as well, like, say children go to school and, you know, their friends will have the latest training shoes, you know, they're like, the things that we take for granted, maybe, whereas if you're on £5 a day, as a parent, you're not able to do that for your child, are you?
Yeah. If you have a school near to you, you're going to be lucky. Your child can go there. But they always ask you in hostel to wait 4 weeks. You may move, so you don't need to take your kids to school because you're going to move to the house, but you don't know when you're going to move. So you're going to keep your kids with you until maybe you move. And if most of hostel you don't have near a school, and even if there's near a school, they don't have place. So the still is going to stay with you. It's just the system, you know. There's just one system people have to follow. It's not like, oh, it's okay, you can go to this school. No, you have to apply and you have to go through the process, and you need to know someone may help you with the process to apply for the school for your child, and you may not get place. Okay. Okay, if there is no another question, I just want to thank people of Liverpool. They're really wonderful people for welcome everybody and nice and lovely people. Sometimes you can have really bad day and you can have someone just talking to you, making you laughing. And it's one of the greatest cities and people are very kind and very nice. I really want to thank people, and I need people also to understand as migrant people of Liverpool or people of UK, sometimes people have their own fears when they see a lot of people people coming. We need to have our power to educate people to make them feel safe. Because even in my home country, sometimes when you see a lot of people come from different places, it is scared. You don't know what's going on. It's to make people feel safe and feel it's okay. You never know what's going to happen in the future. Life change. So I just want to take this opportunity and thank people of Liverpool for welcome all of us and make us feel home and give us place and feel secure. Because I always say, it's not the police who are protecting us, it's our neighbors. They are the one protecting us to make us feel safe. Because if in your house someone is racist attacking you, police not gonna save you. Police gonna take time to come. But your neighbor, where you live, making friendship with the people, be nice to your neighbor, is what make you be part of the community. So I'm thanking everybody for the opportunity and for the wonderful life and for my child to get to school and education and feel safe. Thank you.